Hi everyone, it's Arsh Ellahi, and in today's session I thought I'd share something a little bit different with you. I'm going to share a story about my worst tenant and how the issue and how we overcome it. I'm also going to share a story as to how it actually costs a lot of money, but I actually spent a lot of money fighting it to save face. So before we do that, I want to just say a quick hello, a quick thank you to all new subscribers and all existing subscribers. Hopefully you're finding real value in this channel. Hopefully you really enjoy the content. More importantly, if you know anyone else that would like to hear the same content and somewhat it would be valuable to someone, please feel free to like, share, and also press the subscribe button. So let's get straight into it. Rolling back the years, so I had one tenant that just trying to think which story to give you, because I've got two stories to tell you. I've got one where a property became a drug den, and I've got a second property where a tenant reported me to housing standards, and in actual fact housing standards started to try and prosecute me, and I fought back. Now Fran, which story? Story number one or story number two? Drug den or prosecution? Which one?
One.
Okay, drug den. Right, because people may be able to relate to this. So going back to, I think it was 2005, 2006. Had a commercial property, still own the commercial property in Willenhall, which is in the West Midlands. And it's been let as a commercial unit for a number of years, for the last 15 odd years, and it's always done okay. It's never set the world on light. It's just a small 600-foot square unit, so and it generally was rented to people who were looking to start almost like a car repair business, or it was previously let out to valeters. So you can kind of get a feel as a style of property that it is and who the kind of tenant was. Now it became vacant. We advertised it, and back then we used to advertise back in the back of a newspaper. So in most newspapers, so in the West Midlands, there's a publication called the Express and Star. In the back of it, they've got a classified section where people used to go and look for property to let, and we used to advertise our properties to rent there. So I took a call, and it was a guy called me, and he goes, I'm looking for an industrial unit or commercial unit, something where I can just store some stuff. And at the time, I thought nothing of it, because generally I asked him what he does for a living. He told me that he also works with cars. And I thought, okay, nothing unusual to think of there. Met him at the property. So arranged a viewing, met him at the property. And instantly after viewing it, he says, you know what, to be fair, yeah, I like it. Got no issue with that. And as you do, I did a few checks. I took some ID off him. I took a driving license off him. The driving license had his home address. I took some utility bills off him. Also took his passport off him. So I had 3 good levels of identification. So I thought, and I say so I thought because I'll tell you what happened in a second. And what happened was that the tenant was fine. Every month on the dot, he would pay by direct debit, standing order. And then one week, I remember it, I got a call roughly around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and got a call from a police officer. You always know when you got a call from a police officer. If you get called from a withheld number, especially in the evenings or early mornings, you know it's only one place. It's the police station or a police officer asking for some details for a tenant, or if there's an issue, they'll be asked, coming to inform you. So anyway, police officer calls me, says, hi, is that Mr. Ellahi? I go, yes, it is. And at the time, I was actually sat outside a property, just about to go and view someone's property to buy their property off them. And I was over in Great Bar, which is just outside Birmingham. I remember this because I thought this was really random. And he goes, is that Mr. Ellahi? I go, yes, it is. He goes, are you the owner of unit number 2, such and such street in Willenhall? I go, yes, I am. And he goes, okay, there's been an incident at your property. I said, okay, what's happened? He says, we've found quite a large amount of cannabis in the property. And he goes, can you confirm, had you let the property? I'll go, yes, I had. He goes, what details did you have? I'll go, well, on file, I've got tenancy agreement, I've got identification. We did all the correct checks as we would normally. And they said, okay, fine. I said, we'd like to interview you. And I thought, well, why do you really need to interview me? If I've got all the details, I'm supplying the information, where's the need to interview? So anyway, they said, we'd like you to come into the police station. We're inviting you to come to the police station. I said, okay, fine. I said, I'm currently going into a meeting. Can we schedule it for tomorrow or the day after? They said, well, if you don't come to the office, if you don't come to the police station within the next 2 hours, we're going to put a warrant out for your arrest. I thought, okay, hold on, what's going on right now? 1 minute, I'm answering questions and assisting. Next minute, they're asking me to come to the police station, or I'm going to have a warrant out for my arrest. Unfortunately, had to stop going into that property, and I went straight to the office. I picked up the file for the property, which had all the details in, and I went straight to the police station. Straight away, I was put under caution. Now, at the time, I thought nothing of it. I thought, okay, they're putting me under caution just because that's what they have to do. We're going to go through an interview process. I'm going to answer their questions. I'm going to provide them with the evidence. I'm going to walk out of it in an hour, and hopefully they'll then carry on with their inquiries. So just to make you aware, I didn't go in with any solicitors or any legal representation. Went into the interview. They asked me some details. They asked me, who did I rent the property to? How long had I been renting the property? How much was the rent for? Was there any formal documentation? I supplied them with tenancy agreement. I supplied them with the tenant record sheet, which is a document that I fill out with the tenant showing, who this person is, if they've got a next of kin, date of birth, national insurance number, etc. And I provided them with all that information. They took copies of it. And then they said, okay, fine, we're going to do some further due diligence, and then we're going to come back to you. Next thing I know, didn't hear anything of it for a couple of weeks. I thought, okay, they're doing their due diligence. I went and visited the property that afternoon, found that the shutters had literally been ripped off the walls. They'd caused a serious amount of damage. So the amount of, they found quite a lot of cannabis plants in the property. They drilled through a load of walls. They left a load of things hanging around. So in that respect, they caused a lot of damage. Just imagine that these guys had been there for approximately nearly a year. Now, if you work on the basis that the rent is about £100 a week, which is equivalent to £5,200 per annum, that actually costs near enough the best part of 10, maybe £15,000 worth of damage. So my first question was it really worth renting to them? I've actually run a false economy. I've collected 5,000, but it's actually now costing me 15,000 to put the property right. How does that work? And people say that property is a great industry to get involved in. Right, okay, so moving on. Property was really damaged. Tried to chase the tenant. Tenant was nowhere to be seen. When I say chase the tenant, I called him on the phone numbers. I wrote out to his address, and no responses, unfortunately. So anyway, we were about to start pursuing him legally. So because with a commercial contract, there's lots of things that we can claim for. And I then got a second call from the police station saying, guys, okay, Mr. Ellahi, we need you to come in for a second interview. I thought, this is really strange. So I actually went in for a second interview, but this time I decided to engage a solicitor, because I thought, this is really strange. Out of all the years that I've been letting property, never have I had to have been interviewed under caution, especially for a tenant. More importantly, never have I had to go in twice. So as a result of that, I went in, and then they started going through how did the tenant pay rent? Why did you rent to this tenant? What documents did you produce? How did he produce them? And what they eventually started to come to the conclusion of, they started to think that I had an involvement with the tenant to grow cannabis in my property, which actually is absurd. And what they said is that the documents that I took as identification were proven to be fake documents. So I had a fake driving license, even though it had his name on there. I had a fake passport, which had his name and all his details on there. And I had a fake utility bill. And what they said is that the person that they'd managed to track the details back to had no recollection of ever having been in the West Midlands because it tracked back to Newcastle, not in the West Midlands. So they say, well, how can this person have a unit in the West Midlands when he's based up in Newcastle? So slowly but surely, they were stacking a story or a case against me for being this cannabis mogul and saying that I was the head honcho for this cannabis farm. And it was absolutely absurd. One thing that they kept saying, well, how did you collect the cash? Well, we set it up by a direct debit. They could see that there were some occasions where the tenant called and says, can't pay by a direct debit, can we pay by cash? I'd have people go and collect it. You know, back then, if I thought about it, you know, thinking about it now, is that a trigger point? The one thing that they had outside the property, there's a police surveillance camera. And they saw me go to the property over a year, probably about 3 or 4 times. And they saw me go into the unit, come out of the unit. And I asked the question, how long was I in the unit for? At any point, I was in the unit for approximately 30 seconds, collecting the rent and come straight back out. But back then, I didn't go into the unit. I went into the office before entering into the unit. So either way, I had to challenge it. So I employed a very good solicitor. And as a result of that, if you are going through this, by the way, and you need solicitors' guidance, please let me know. I've got a very good solicitor, I've got a very good barrister that can assist you through this. Now, bear in mind that it cost me £15,000 to put the property right. It then eventually cost me another £15,000 in legal costs to fight this. So we had to go through, believe it or not, they put me on bail for approximately 8 months whilst I went through this process. They actually also detained my passport so that I could not go on vacation. So it was quite scary, if I'm honest. The reason why it's quite scary is because, first of all, I thought, well, hang on, I haven't done anything wrong here. More importantly, I followed everything as I should. I took the correct ID, I did all the checks. Little did I know that the documents were fraudulent, but they were very, very good copies. Something that I had never come across anyway. And so that particular letting actually cost me £30,000. Well, if you work on the basis that I generated £5,000 in income, but in actual fact, with damage and also legal costs, it cost me £30,000. In actual fact, I'm down by 25 grand. Now, I'm just quite thankful that I was in a position to be able to fight it because yes, we didn't have to go to court because after bail hearing, I have to attend a bail hearing at the police station every 2 to 4 weeks. So that was a little bit annoying, admittedly, because when you go there, you literally go, you check yourself in and you come back out almost like you're just reporting to the station, letting them know that you've not run out of the country. Now, after that, so I went to bail hearing. And then finally, after 8 months, all they said, Mr. Ellahi, we've decided not to proceed the matter any further. We haven't got enough evidence. And I thought, well, hang on. I gave you all the information from the outset. What other evidence would you have collated? So either way, after 8 months, unfortunately, well, when I say unfortunately, they dropped the case. So, and as a result of that, there was a massive sense of relief. There's lots of sleepless nights thinking, what if, or even though I knew I was innocent, but you never know if we go to judge, if we go to court, what could happen on the day. We've heard lots of stories of innocent people going to jail, and it did really worry me, I'll be honest. But this is just a story. I've got lots of stories. Well, luckily, this is the only story where I've been arrested or put under caution, where I actually thought something could go wrong here. But luckily, I had a good legal team, I had a good barrister who fought in my corner. And as a result, they were very confident and they kept saying to me, Arsh, don't worry, you're not going anywhere, nothing's happening. But there's always that element of doubt in my mind. So, guys, one thing I will say to you is that, letting can be a very, very dangerous business. Now, and the one thing that really taught me is that we've got to be extremely cautious and extremely stringent on the checks that we do on a tenant, because one tenant, now I'm very fortunate that I could afford to fight the battle, pay £15,000 legal costs, and it didn't really concern me. What I really wanted to do is make sure that I stay out of jail. Now, one thing that crossed my mind is that if someone would only had one or perhaps two properties and they didn't have the sufficient income to fight that, would that have sent them down? Would that have actually cost them? What would that have done to them financially and emotionally as well? Would they have had to go into financial hardship as a result of that? And all because one person wanted to grow a cannabis farm and it has caused so much harm to other people as a result of their actions. So guys, when you are letting property, just be extremely cautious. You've got to do your due diligence. You know, we're extremely due diligent on every tenant that comes through the door now, because let's face it, if every tenant costs us 15 grand and we're only generating 5, what's the point? You make more money staying in bed. So guys, hopefully that's just a little snippet. I'll do some more real life stories, because these are the things they don't teach you on those lovely courses. These are the things that they don't teach you at landlord school. These are the things that they don't teach you at property investor school. So guys, as always, if you like the stories, please feel free to comment below. Say, Arsh, more stories, please. Oh, I've got stories for days. They call me Jack and Ori. If you like more free content, why don't you download the Property Rebel podcast? It's a podcast which I release every Tuesday at 6 a.m. and it's completely free. It's packed with property content and is phenomenal, a resource for property if that's what you like listening to podcasts. Sorry, I'm waffling now. More importantly, if you want to connect with me on social media, please feel free to do so. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram. Finally, have you already downloaded the Property Investor app? If not, why not? It's the UK's first property investment platform, which is the only platform which showcases below market value deals, rent to rent deals, lease option deals, service accommodation deals, development deals. We've even got some commercial units for sale. PS, not the one that was in this story. But on that note, guys, hopefully I wish you all to be safe, well, happy in these testing times, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.